What is up, folks? It's JT. This is the Let's Grow podcast, and I am excited for this conversation that we're going to have today. I have a dear friend of mine, guest, Mr. Michael Rodenberg, and I'm telling you, when I say that this is an impressive individual, that is an understatement. He's not going to tell you that himself, right? He's humble enough to not say that about himself. But I'm excited about the conversation that we're going to have today. Of course, this is your place for not only encouragement, but a place to come hang out and listen to some real conversations with real people that can help you grow and get better, because this is a personal development podcast. And so, Mr. Michael Rodenberg, thank you for joining me this morning, my friend.
Jeremy, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you. I always enjoy getting to talk with you and just learn from you. So I'm excited to sit down today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Guys, and another exciting thing about this conversation that we're going to have today is Mr. Rodenberg just published his first book. I'm going to say first book because I don't think this will be the last. Who knows, though? But Bridge the Gap, How Leaders Can Revitalize Broken Organizations. As soon as I saw him post this, I went and purchased it. You know why? Because I know that it's important to learn from people who are successful, people who genuinely care about serving, loving, caring for other people. That's who he is. So guys, listen, I'm telling you right now, before we start talking about the book, you need to go get a copy right now. Like, don't wait. Don't even ask me where to get it. Just go find it. No questions asked. Just go do it. Right. But congratulations on this, Michael.
Hey, thank you. That was, it was exciting to be able to do that. It was a work in progress, but I really enjoyed getting to do it.
So, Michael, you are the first non-Japanese member of the Murakami Corporation. Murakami Manufacturing US is the organization in the United States, but it's a Japanese-based company. You're the CEO, correct?
Yeah, of the North American operations.
Of the North American operations. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and how you were introduced to MMUS.
So, a little bit of background on myself. I have been dealing with Japan for almost 30 years now. Started, out of high school, had the opportunity to do a service mission for a couple of years, and went to college, studied Japanese in college. And then after that, had a few career opportunities where I worked for a Japanese company, worked for a US company in Japan. And throughout my career was given a lot of different opportunities to just experience a wide range of business. And so about almost 20 years ago, I was in Japan working, and I got to know the Murakami family. And it was because they were my competitor. And as my competitor in Japan, 20 years ago, you'd talk with your competitors. It's like, hey, what's going on your side? Of course, we wouldn't share any, confidential information. We just kind of talked about the market, what was happening. And so I developed this understanding of Murakami. It's a family-owned business, and developed kind of a respect for them. I thought, hey, this is a good group of people. And when I was coming back from Japan, finished my assignment, they asked me, said, would you join Murakami? And at the time, I thought, you know what, I'm not ready for that. They were just starting up this operations in the US. I had worked for a smaller Japanese company years before, and when I did that, there was kind of a glass ceiling. So you really couldn't progress past a certain point. And I thought, I'd like to come back and work for a Japanese company, but if I can't run the company, I'm not interested. And so I came back to the States and worked for the next 12 years. And what happened is during that period of time, is I maintained a relationship with them. And every year I'd touch base. Hey, how are things going? What's going on? How's everybody, how's the group? And I came to understand that they were struggling in the US. And it'd been 10 years since they got started. And as I gathered more and more information, I thought, here's my opportunity. Here's what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to run a Japanese company. And so I made an arrangement to meet Mr. Murakami. He was coming to the States. I thought, well, hey, let's just touch base. What he didn't know is that I was putting together a presentation to go, okay, I'm here to touch base with you. But for the last, 20 years while we've been away from each other, it was 10 years. So we've been away from each other. I've gained all this experience. I set up an operation in China. I've been doing mergers and acquisitions and doing all these different things. And so we sit across the table, do our casual greetings. And I said, okay, wait a minute. Let me share with you what I've been doing. And so I laid out this presentation to him and a couple of his senior execs. And afterwards I said, so I'm here because I want to run your company. And he was like,
not everyone steps into a meeting and says that.
He goes, I thought this was a meet and greet. I'm like, no, that's why I'm here. It says, okay, thank you. Have a nice day. It was good to talk to you. And a month later, he called back and said, will you come join us?
Wow.
And so, that's how it all got started. And I love that because, I want people to understand that if you want something, you have to ask.
Yes.
Nothing
Yes.
ever falls in your lap. But if you're least willing to ask, the worst thing that can happen is someone will say no. But on the other hand, if you ask, then people go, well, why not?
Mm-hmm. And asking is one part of it. And also another part of it, I believe, Michael, is working hard to prepare yourself for that next opportunity when it does become available. So
Exactly.
it's not like you were just sitting back saying, wishing upon a star that I hope this will happen and I'm going to ask for it, but then I'm not prepared to step in and do the work if that opportunity does present itself to me. So that's an exciting, backstory on, Japan, how you got started, how you got your foot in the door. Tell us also, before we dive into a few questions and talk a little bit about culture and leadership and growing people, what does Maricami exist to do? What kind of product or service do you guys
So we're a manufacturer, a tier one. So we sell directly to the automotive manufacturers, and we service Toyota, Nissan, Honda, Suzuki, Subaru, mostly the Japanese auto manufacturers, but we make exterior mirrors. So we do injection mold, paint, assembly, and what ends up is a full assembly. So that door mirror that you see on your vehicle comes off our assembly line, painted to match the vehicle. It gets shipped to Canada, to Baja, Mexico, to various places in the US, and they just bolt it on and plug it in. And we do that every day. We make over 10,000 mirrors here in Campbellsville. And then we also open up a plant in Mexico to service the southern region of North America. And, that plant builds about 5,000. So every day we're building 15,000 mirrors just here in the US.
Yeah.
So that's what we do.
And that's what's so crazy about this story, guys, and my connection with Michael is that out of all the places in the world that Japan, Maricami could have a US based, entity in Campbellsville, Kentucky, right? Smack dead center of the state where I grew up, my hometown, born and raised, Campbellsville, Kentucky boy. And I met Michael Rodenberg through a speaking engagement that I had at the high school that I graduated from. I transitioned out of teaching and coaching back in 2012 and was building a network marketing business. And I was excited about the opportunity to work for myself. But when I stepped out of teaching and coaching, I started getting requests to come back into the classroom or talk to sports teams, and then eventually talk to an entire student body at a school assembly, faculty and staff. And then one day I'm invited back home to speak at Taylor County High School, and Michael Rodenberg happened to be in the bleachers that day. And I'll let Michael share a little bit about, his side of the story as well. But I remember when I left that day, my wife, who was my fiance at the time, had a business card of Michael's, and he said to ask for me to get in touch with him. And I was like, what? Like, I don't know anything about manufacturing. I don't know this guy. I just really started my speaking career outside of already teaching and coaching. Like, what on earth could this guy want with me? I sat on his card for honestly a couple of months. I was kind of scared to give him a call. Didn't know what to expect. And then finally we touched base. But Michael, what was the purpose of you passing me your card that day?
It's funny because Alan Gaddis, who is a business owner here in town, grabbed me and said, hey, you need to go hear this kid speak. He's really good. And I'm like, okay, whatever, let's go. And, so, because I was relatively new to the community. I mean, I'd only been there a year, and I'm in the middle of a turnaround trying to help this company get where they need to be. And Alan's like, hey, come, this Jeremy Taylor, he's a really unique person. So let's go hear him. And so I'm sitting in the stands, and as I'm watching you speak, I'm like, this guy's got it. He has the ability to influence individuals. And because I was in the middle of a turnaround, I'm like, this is what my team needs. My team needs someone from the local community that understands what goes on here. And he could probably put a little fire in them and at least help us build some relationships.
Sure.
And so I couldn't get you because you were so popular. It's like, okay, it's like you're down on the floor and you got 100 kids around. It's like, well, I'm not going to get to that guy. And it just so happened that your wife was sitting next to me in the stands. And so I turned around and said, well, I'll never get to talk to him today. So here's a card. Maybe he'll contact me, if he will. And I'd love to talk to you. And so that's how it all began.
Yeah, that's when I look back on it and I think about that initial contact and coming and sitting down in the office with you guys and chatting about the potential of working together and what you guys were trying to get accomplished. What impressed me so much, which segues into our conversation today and talking about the book and talking about culture, was I knew right out of the gate, guys, that Michael Rodenberg was someone who wanted to help people win. Now, granted, I didn't know anything about Murakami. I didn't know anything about manufacturing. I didn't know anything about exterior mirrors. I didn't even know anything about the company that was in the town that I lived in. Had no idea how many people they employed. What I knew was that he wanted to help his people win, and that was the major point of turning around the company, was helping them see themselves more than what they were and becoming something different and developing this mindset of excellence and higher expectation. And then to see this begin to unfold through the time that I spent with them and learning more about them and the time that I hadn't been with them, just further confirms with me how great of an opportunity it was to say that I was a small piece of that. And so I want to say publicly before we dive into some questions, Michael, thank you so much for taking a chance on me. Thank you for giving me an opportunity. Thank you for trusting me, and that I had you and your people and your company, their best interest at heart, and that I just wanted to show up and help them win, help them grow and get better. It really was an opportunity that changed the trajectory of my career, just to be honest.
Well, thank you. I one of the things that I love to do is with individuals like yourself is provide that initial stepping stone. And you're not the first one. I have an executive coach of mine that did the same thing. We'd known each other for years. He's like, hey, I'm going to step out and do my business. And he goes, I'm looking for clients. I said, well, why don't you start with me? And now his business is taken off. And so it's the same way. It's like, if you see people with potential and that have that drive, it's like, why not? And that's what I could see. And I was excited from the moment you sat in my, when I heard you speak and then get to sit with you, I'm like, this could be really fun. And it was.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. We had 4 sessions that initial year, 2-hour sessions quarterly. And I think there were about 30 plus team members in that initial session. You intentionally set out of those sessions. And then we swung back around and did an offsite retreat. That was a good time with the senior leadership team. Had a blast that day, about a half-day session. But yeah, an unbelievably memorable experience. And one thing that I also want to plug here is on the back end there, I remember one of the senior leaders. Sadly, I don't remember his name. But I remember he always wore a trucker hat, oftentimes a sleeveless shirt, just a good old boy.
Mike Pulley. Mike Pulley is the guy.
Just a good old boy. I think former military, I believe.
Yes, he's a Navy, he's the real deal.
And we wrapped up that session in the offsite, and he raised his hand. We were talking about any other questions, comments, concerns, things that we need to firm up, kind of, just to tie this thing together. And he said, I have something to say. And he said, I got to be honest with you. Whenever you first stepped in front of us over a year ago, I thought this was a joke. And I was like, whoa. He said, I just didn't feel like, at your age and you not really knowing anything about us, about, what we do here, that you were going to be able to really help us. I just didn't see the value in it. And he said, but each time you showed up, I could tell that you were excited, you were passionate about it. And the more that we talked and the more that you really expressed a genuine concern about our lives and what we were doing outside of work, also inside of work, I could tell that you wanted to help us get better, not only at work, but also at life. And I just want to apologize to you. I want to apologize to you. And I want to say thank you so much for showing up every single time that you were scheduled to be with us and giving us your very best. And I was like, whoa, oh my gosh. I'm like, man, if you could turn around a good old boy like that, then then maybe you can help anybody. Right.
The thing about Mike that's so awesome is he's currently the general manager of our operations. And Mike started out as a contract team member with us. And now he's running all the operations. And we joke because it's like Mike's a cult leader. He's got this following, it's like we can't break into the following. And everybody's like, it's like a disciple of Mike Pulley. But I think it was those experiences, because that was the first of many where we did leadership development. And now he's like, we got to do this stuff. We've got to develop people. We've got to help them and make them, a greater person. So, Mike, I just can't say enough about Mike. And I think that's very indicative of him. He's got a tough outer shell, but inside he is just, he cares so much about people.
Yeah, totally. Well, Michael, as we hit a couple of questions here, tell us something about yourself that we wouldn't know by only looking at your social media profiles.
So as a kid, I was extremely shy, was very, how can I say it? I was not the popular kid. I was a nerd. In fact, if you go back and look at my junior high pictures, there I am. I was in the band, and we had these horrible, ugly, like mustard yellow jackets with blue corduroy pants and a turtleneck. And I was, I was like ghost white with these big, huge glasses, and I had no confidence. I'm serious. I had no confidence whatsoever. And because of that lack of confidence, I never, ever completed anything. I played a little bit of sports. I played music, but I never finished anything up and through high school. And, people look back and go, that you could have never been that way. I said, yeah, I was. I was so self-conscious of who I was. And I grew up and didn't have a lot of money. And so I didn't have the cool stuff. I didn't have the cool clothes. I didn't have, a lot of things that other kids had. And so that was something that was really, really hard on me growing up. And,
what do you think helped you grow out of that or grow through that?
One of the things is when I was a senior in high school, we were a 5A school, which is a big school. And I grew up in Texas. So the Friday Night Lights was a real deal. And in my senior year, I thought, what? We had this incredible coach who had won state championships, was a great leader. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to try out for the football team. And these are big, I'm like a tall, skinny kid. And so I did. The junior year, I tried out and I made the team. And I was going to get to actually start and play on the kicking team. That was it. Okay, you're going to get to run down the field and maybe tackle somebody. But that summer, I got cat scratch fever. It's real. Okay, I got cat scratch fever. And I went from weighing like 170, like weighing 130. So I show up, and those were the days when you'd come in for physicals, right, for athletics, and you had all these kids standing there in their underwear, and I'm in my boxers, and they're like, you look like, I don't know what's happened to you, but we only see bones.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, because of the illness, I wasn't going to be able to play, but I still wanted that opportunity to be a part of that team. And so the coaches are like, hey, you can't, but you can still be on the team. And so I did it. I played on that team. I probably got, I got to practice a little bit. I played in one game, one play, but I stuck it out to the end.
Yeah.
We went on to, I got some great experience, played on Texas A&M field. We did some big stuff, travel around in fancy buses. And I did that to the end. And that was the first time ever that I finished something.
Yes. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. I like that. And so many kids can benefit from that story because they're I mean, with what's taking place in the world currently, with some of the expectations that kids have to be engaged on social media all the time with all the distractions that are in the world, with a lot of kids coming from situations that we don't even know about, right? Home lives. There are so many kids who lack the confidence to start something and to finish something, and not only lack the confidence, but don't have any inspiration or encouragement whatsoever, because the environment that they're around, doesn't encourage them to be that kind of person. And so to hear that story and to know that, man, you can grow through things, you can overcome situations and circumstances. And here you are looking back saying, man, it wasn't necessarily the best start for me. Right. But it's not about how you start. It's about how you finish. Right.
Yeah.
In the vision that you continue to cultivate for your life, which as we work to talk a little bit about the book, I think part of that comes from what I read about you and your parents here on the front end of your book. So what kind of solid foundation, at the very beginning of the book, you mentioned, a thank you to your parents for the solid foundation that they gave you to build on. What was that like? What kind of foundation did your parents provide for you, Michael?
I thought about that, and my parents were just solid. It wasn't that not only they gave a solid foundation, but they were committed to their marriage. They were committed to each other. They were committed to us as kids. And like I said, we didn't have a lot of stuff. We just grew up, middle class, lower middle class. It wasn't like we were, top of the food chain or anything like that. But they made sure that we did the basics. We were active in our faith. We were taught, you treat people with respect. You don't, everybody's equal. So treat everybody equally.
Yes.
Work hard. I can remember, they taught me at 8 years old, I was mowing lawns. I can't imagine an 8-year-old mowing a lawn right now. And that's before like really super safe lawnmowers.
Yeah.
I mean, I got the gas lawnmower pushing across the lawn or pulling weeds at the neighbor's house. And I can remember weeds taller than I was, having to pull those weeds and go, if you want money, you're going to make it. If you want to buy something, you got to go figure out how to do it. And it was those life skills that they taught me that really kind of set the tone.
So, you mentioned their commitment to their marriage, to your faith, their marriage, their commitment to you. How does that translate for you in your commitment to your people, your team, and the turnaround that you guys have had with your culture? Because I'm not going to give away all the details of the book, guys. You got to go get the book. But Michael stepped into a situation where the culture was shattered, right? People were discouraged. Production wasn't anywhere near what it needed to be. And the company didn't know if the operations in the U.S. was even gonna make it, right? Was going to continue. And so the commitment that you talk about learning from your parents, how does that translate to how you approached turning the culture around?
I think the one thing that my dad taught me, and it was look at people as they can become and not as they are. So you walk in and look at people and go, oh, this is all I got. These people are useless. It's like, no, I believe that people have a divine DNA.
Yes.
They have a divine DNA. And if you know that personally, and you can see that in them, that you can expect greatness and get it. A lot of people they don't think they have anything great within them. And so, but if someone comes up to you and says, hey, you're pretty amazing. And they look around and go, you talking to me?
Yeah.
It's like, but that was it. That was really the only thing that, and my dad gave me a book as a kid that changed my life forever. It's As a Man Thinketh by James Allen.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 100-year-old book. It's a little, my book's a little read. It's even a shorter read. So, you go get that book too. But it was all about your thoughts become your actions.
Yeah.
And it was those two things. These individuals have divine DNA. They can do great things. Help them understand, if they can picture it in their mind, we can get there.
Yes.
And those were the two things that I think were so critical to help with this turnaround.
Something I highlighted in your book is a quote here, and talking about the turnaround and how you approach the turnaround, because there was an intentional time period that you had at the beginning where you kind of surveyed the situation at hand. And I love this perspective as a leader and as a culture creator. And I'm going to use that term culture creator a couple of times, guys, for you all listening and watching, because that's a term that I continue to use with Michael's team. That culture already exists, good or bad, indifferent, a culture exists, but being a culture creator is someone who is intentional about building the culture that you want to work in, right? And something that Michael said here in the book, he said, surveying the situation, right? Paying attention to the situation whenever I stepped in, enabled me to see the challenges as well as the opportunities. Think about that, guys, from a leadership perspective. Surveying the situation enabled me to see the challenges, but also allowed me to see the opportunities. Michael, as a leader, why is it important to understand that a challenge does present an opportunity, that with a problem comes an opportunity and to provide a solution? Why is that an important mindset?
Well, because I mean, every challenge is an opportunity. I mean, and what I mean by that, it's like you start to look around and you see all these pieces of low-hanging fruit that if you just do a little bit, you get a quick win.
Yes.
You get a quick win, and all of a sudden you have gained some trust. And that to me was so important, to looking around and going, hey, there's a few simple things if we do today, people are all of a sudden going to go, this person's serious. He's not, he or she's just not talk. They've been able to identify something very quickly that's going to help us. And in many cases, because people are in the middle of it, they don't see it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They have been in the battlefield for 10 years. They just wake up every day and go, okay, I got to go to battle again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And they can't see around them. So when you walk in and go, my goodness, yeah, there's some challenges here, but if we can fix these quickly, and there's going to be some big ones that are going to take some time, but you do a few of those quick ones fast, hey, it just starts, momentum picks up.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Michael, I mean, when you think about the story of turning around Murakami in the U.S., and you think about bridging the gap, which is the title of the book here, bridging the gap, repairing the culture, and then specifically with your story, bridging the gap between two cultures, because there's an interesting dynamic here with this company that, because of your background and understanding the Japanese culture, being able to speak Japanese, right, you're able to do something that a lot of other leaders wouldn't do. With this big turnaround, and now being the author of a published book, you must have some daily routines, some consistent habits that you just blow it out of the water. And if we adopt your routines, then we're just going to go kill it in life, right? So what's your day-to-day look like? What's your morning routine look like to set you up for success, Mike?
I'm in survival mode, man. I mean, it's funny because I also am responsible for a plant down in Mexico. And one of the team members came up to me and asked that. They go, how'd you write a book? Because we see you running around all over the place. You're dealing with Japan and Mexico and the US. And we know you've got family responsibilities and you got responsibilities in your church. You're doing all these different things. How do you do this? And honestly speaking, there's a couple of simple things. I try and if I don't get 8 hours of sleep, I'm a disaster. Okay, That's number one, right? I got to get 8 hours of sleep. The other one is make your bed. There's a great, and I can't think of it offhand, but there's a great speech by, I think it's an admiral or in the military that talks about just get up and make your bed.
Sure. Start the day with a win.
Yeah, I mean that's it. I mean, I do other things. I mean, I try and be intentional about having some time to think about things outside of work, whether it's to ponder in the scriptures, have time for personal prayer and meditation, but because my schedule is so sporadic, and you and I talked about that, some days, and especially now with COVID, because before I was in Japan every month. So go to Japan every month, you're flying, you're spending all this time on an airplane. But because of COVID, I haven't traveled to Japan since last year, February. It's the last time I was in Japan. And so I've had to adjust my schedule. And all of a sudden I'm doing meetings at 2 or 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning. And so with that, you can't have a regular routine.
Yeah.
I'm not that person who wakes up at 4 a.m. and goes, okay, it's time for the day. And I'm going to run and meditate and do all my emails before 6 in the morning. It's like, no, that's not happening. So my thing is, that's for me. And I think that's why it's so important that each individual find what works for them.
Totally. Totally. And I appreciate you sharing that, because if you go online and, on any given day, you hit your Twitter feed and you see a post from Business Insider or Forbes or Success Magazine, and they're talking about the daily routines and habits of the top performing CEOs, or here's what these high level achievers do every morning. And, they wake up and they drink X amount of liquids and they exercise for this amount of time and they read for this, then they, and at the end of the day, like you said, to each their own, and what works for Michael Rodenberg may not work for Jeremy Taylor, right? Our schedules are different. We're in different seasons of life. We have different focuses, but at the end of the day, finding what works best for you and doing it consistently is what I believe can set you up for success. I mean, you have any other thoughts there, Michael?
Yeah, and I do think there's a time and a season. When I was younger, I used to brag on the fact that I could operate on 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And I did those things. I was 4 hours of sleep. I was working, 18 hours a day. And I thought that was the right thing at the time. Now, looking back, yeah, it was the right thing for my career, but it necessarily wasn't the right thing for the people that meant the most to me.
Yes.
Yes. And I'll be honest, is that one of the things that I've learned and is that being successful or having a career where you're always striving for the next goal, you can leave collateral damage. And it's usually with those that mean the most to you.
Yeah.
Whether it's your spouse or your children, they are the ones that pay the price.
Yeah.
Because you bring your best self to the workplace, and then you go home and you're a grouchy, cranky old, I don't want to talk. I don't care. Do whatever you need to do. I'm making the money. I'm providing for you. So just be happy. It's like, oh, no, that doesn't fly.
Yeah. They're getting the leftovers whenever they need the best of you. And, one of my mentors once told me, he said, no amount of success is worth sacrificing your faith in your family. I don't care what you do, how much money you make, where you live at, no amount of success is worth that. And so I really appreciate you confirming that and being a man who walks that out, because that provides a great example for the culture that you want to continue to cultivate inside your team, being the man that you say you are, being the example that you want to see duplicated in the organization. You mentioned COVID a couple seconds ago, and I do want to ask, how have you personally stayed positive, or what are some things that you've tried to do with your team and your leaders and to help keep a positive culture at this time? Because needless to say, it's an interesting time we're living in. This has brought on a lot of mental and emotionally taxing, situations that we haven't had to consider before. So how have you guys stayed on the up and up?
One of the things when this first hit, there was so much uncertainty, and especially in our industry, because we didn't know if we were going to shut down. And then it became, when are we going to shut down? And then it was, how long are we going to shut down? What's the impact? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I committed to doing day one was being transparent.
Yeah. So
if we were getting information from the customer, I did this thing called a CEO letter, and it's out there on LinkedIn. You can go look at all my CEO letters that I wrote. And I shared them on public or on social media, on Facebook, everything with every person I could. Is I tried to communicate to the team immediately what I knew. If the customer said something, okay, this is what we're hearing.
Sure.
If I don't know about something, I'm letting you know I don't know about something. And that's what I did in the very beginning. And it went on for an extended period of time, and tried to be encouraging and just sharing bits and pieces of information to kind of uplift the team, but also to share with them our struggles as a management team. If we were having a difficulty time, hey, this is what's hard for us to decide. How are we going to handle this? And so those are things that helped, I think, the team and helped us get through it. And one of the things I am so grateful for is that when we came back to work, all our team members came back. And to me, that was a big indication of, hey, did we do the right thing?
Yeah.
And that was huge. I will say this, there were dark times for me as well, where the inspiration wouldn't come.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I wrote about is that I'm a big believer is you only get today.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do to make, and so it's like, okay, you get one day at a time. That one day at a time became one step at a time. And that was the message that I was communicating. It's like, I think it was Patrick Lencioni wrote and said, hey, we're in the middle of a snowstorm. We're in a blizzard and you cannot see in front of your face. I mean, this is it. And that's what I communicated to the team. It's like, we can't see that far. So we're just taking an inch at a time and it's okay.
Yeah.
And because every day the scenario, even when we came back to work, every day was uncertain. And in business leaders hate uncertainty.
Yep.
We want to know what's next. And so that was the only way. And even to this day, because we're still experiencing ups and downs. It's like, guys, we get today. So let's get through the day. Let's do something to lift somebody up, make a difference.
Yes.
Because we're not going to change the whole world. But if we change our small little microcosm, then that's going to impact the world.
Totally. Yes. Yes. And sometimes people think it's a fluffy idea waking up, Michael, and saying, today is another opportunity to make a positive difference in the lives of the people around you. But at the end of the day, what people don't see is that that's really all we have. That's really all we can do. And we have to champion that if we really want to live a life of purpose and meaning and feel good at the grand conclusion of our life, looking back and saying, you know what, I did what I could with what I had, where I was at. Well, then that means we have to take it one day at a time. And with the organizations that I worked with at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, and talking about like, what should be the focus right now that things have been the way they've been for quite some time? What should be the focus moving forward? And I say, guys, listen, this is going to be earth shattering information, but the best piece of advice I can give you is take it one day at a time.
That's it.
I think this has given us a very good, this has given us a prime opportunity to stop worrying so much about the past, stop worrying so much about the future, and worry about what we can do right now, because that's really all we have.
Yeah. I think, one of the things we all know that this path is going to eventually end. Mm-hmm. We go on to the next, but I think this has helped me more than ever to think about mortality in a whole different level. There's days I drive down the road and go, wow, I'm here today.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Because, I have friends, I'm getting to an age in my life where people just disappear. And because of this virus, people have been sick and died that were here and then gone. And so it's like, it just recognizes it's a gift. So use the gift.
That's right. Use the gift, and use that gift to better the lives of the people around you. And that's the culture that you're creating there at Murakami. And so as you've done that, where did the inspiration come from to write this book? Like where, at what point in time did you say, what, I think I believe this story may be able to help some other organizations and serve some other leaders like myself?
A few years ago, because I'm so involved in workforce development and working with young people, and kind of like you, I love to go talk to high school kids. And it kind of started from, let's tell a story. We started, and everything's a story. If you can tell a story that can engage individuals, then there's some value. And so when people would come to visit our facility from the outside, I love to tell the story. Hey, this is where we were at. This is the progress we've made. And this is where we are today. And after telling that story time and time and time again, and then bits and pieces would kind of attach to it. 2 years ago, it's kind of like, and I think about, famous musicians, and they tell you about, there's something in my head, there's a piece of music in my head, and I got to get it out.
Yeah.
And that's how it was with the book. It's like, there is something here that I think can help other individuals, and I want to know how to get it out. And so I started asking around. I started asking other authors, hey, how'd you write a book? What'd you do? And particularly, and I mentioned her in the book, is Stephanie Walkman. I was introduced to her. She's an author in the business field. And I said, what I did? She goes, hey, you know what? There's this cool app called Rev. You're talking to it and it dictates. Just try that. See if that helps get things out of your head. And I started to do that. And then it started to kind of take, a little bit of shape. I'm like, oh, here's a couple of pages. Here's a couple of, chapters. I can do this. And then once that happened, then it was back to the 2 a.m. You wake up and go, okay, I got to write.
Mm-hmm.
And you sit and, write until 6 a.m. And that's kind of what it was, is I just felt deep inside that, hey, this may be able to have something to help anybody. It doesn't need to be business. It can be a nonprofit. It can be a church. And after my wife read it, she goes, why didn't you just change this? Why don't you make it a marriage book? Because this is everything. If you'd have done, our marriage would have been 10 times earlier. In fact, she wouldn't talk to me for 2 days after she read it. She goes, you knew exactly what to do in our marriage. Why didn't you do it? And I'm like,
you mean you've been doing this at work and you ain't been doing this at home?
Exactly. Oh my gosh. I had to do some serious repenting after that. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And cool plug there for folks who are aspiring authors, or you have a story to tell and you want to take maybe the next step on putting pen to pad, so to speak, or getting your ideas out there. I use the Rev app to create captions for videos. I forgot they have a dictation, piece there where you can speak into it and it boom throws it out into words. And so, man, what a cool idea there for someone to be able to use to start to get some thoughts down.
And it happens like in a minute.
Yeah.
That's what's so crazy. It's like it shows up in minutes, like, $1 a page. It's like, okay, well, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so Mike, now that the book's out there, I'm assuming that you've gotten a little bit of feedback. You've had some folks say, "Man, listen, thank you so much for putting this out there in the world." And I want you to know that I thank you for putting it out there, because one, I had no idea that my name would be in there, so I need some royalties, FYI. And
when it hits 1 million, I'll give you a call. Okay.
Yes. And I had a gentleman contact me after he saw me promoting your book to say, are you the Jeremy Taylor that was in Michael Rodenberg's book? I said, actually, that happens to be me. And he said, could we arrange a call to talk about some one-on-one coaching? And I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Pretty, just by
there's your royalty. Okay, you're good.
There we go. So now that this is out there, Michael, do you see this as an opportunity maybe to begin traveling and sharing your story a little more often, or what?
Actually, if you go, I've got a website called wecanbridgethegap.com, and it talks about that on there, speaking engagement, coaching. But my number one priority right now is being the CEO of this company.
Yes.
And so, I'm responsible for, 700 plus people between here and Mexico. And if you take their families into consideration, and I always think about, okay, I take their families into consideration. So I 4X that, and you're thinking, hey, there's 3,000 people that if I make a bad decision, it could hurt their lives.
Yeah.
And so all my focus is on that. And in writing the book, I felt really strongly that this is something that can endure.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the time is right, that, I'll take advantage of that. But right now, how many people can I, let's just get it into people's hands and see if it can help them. And if I can help them through that process, great. But just like with you, I have an executive coach, and you're a coach as well, that he's using my book. And so it's like, hey, you know what? That's great. That's what I wanted it to do, to be able to help people. And if something becomes of it down the road, I look at some of my favorite books is, the 5 Dysfunctions of the Team that I had my team read. That's been around for years.
Yeah.
And it just keeps growing. So if that book could eventually be something like that, then wow.
Yeah.
But if it helps one person, then I did my job.
Totally. Michael, if someone called you today, if they read your book and they called you today and they said, Michael, listen, I know your time is unbelievably valuable. You have a lot of people you're responsible for. You're CEO, you got all this going on, but I need one piece of advice. On maybe what you think will be the best first step in changing culture around. What would you say would be the focus, or what would you offer that person?
I'd say read the first part of the book. Assess the damage. So often leaders, and that's the one thing I like to stress, is there's certain things that only a leader can do. You have to step back and look at your organization and be objective. What is it? What are the facts? And the only way you get the facts is you've got to go and talk to people. You can't manage by hearsay. You got to manage by data. So go talk to the people one-on-one. get their feedback, and then go look at the data and see if the story matches. Because in most cases, it'll match. And the people that are doing the day-to-day know more about the business than in many cases your managers. They know what's happening. And if you're a leader and you go talk to them, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
Because in most cases, in most organizations, the leaders are not willing to go talk to the people that do the day in and day out.
Yeah. And not willing to listen.
Yeah.
Because you even put in here, you said it is amazing what people will share if leaders are willing to listen.
Yeah.
And something that you gave me an opportunity to do by you not being in those sessions that we did that first year of working with the organization was you stepped out because you wanted to give them an opportunity to share openly without your influence. And they were able to tell me some things and some frustrations, and conversations were cultivated and continued through the course of that year that I don't think would have happened if, as a leader, I hadn't been, taught and mentored on the importance of listening and finding out where people are at, and then talking about what matters to them, right? And learning what motivates these people, right? Because motivation is different for all of us, right? So Mike, as we work to close down here, are there any books you're currently reading? Are there any podcasts you listen to? Is there any information out there that you feel like kind of helps you grow as a person and as an executive that you think other people can learn from?
Yeah, it's funny you'd ask that because I've got it right in front of me. All right. So I just finished this, Marshall Goldsmith, what got you here won't get you there. And in a very unique experience, I got to meet Marshall in December. I'm a part of this group, and somehow I ended up in a Zoom meeting, and by accident, we were sitting across from each other because no one else had showed up.
Yeah.
And he's one of the top executive coaches in the world, coaches people like Alan Mulally and just all of these great people. So Marshall's book I just finished, and then I'm halfway through The Culture, which is by James Hunter. And people would ask, well, it's like, you did all this culture work. Why are you reading a book about culture? Is because you can never learn enough.
Oh man, praise hands. Praise hands. Yes. Yes. Always be growing. Never stop learning. When you stop learning, you start dying. Leaders are readers. And man, it's so refreshing to hear someone stand by that. Or do you continue to reference resources to the team?
Yeah, totally. I'm always shooting something. I mean, I'm buying books and going, hey, you need to read this. And they're like, oh my gosh, here goes Rodenberg again. He's throwing another book at us. He's asking us to do all this other stuff, and he wants us to read a book.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, this Marshall Goldsmith book was the perfect timing. And I think so often that if we're reading, we get things at the right time. And this was perfect for me because it's about successful business leaders that get to a certain point and like, this is what you do to go to the next level. And once you go to the next level is very surprising. It's not about business. It's not about being a leader because you've left a lot of collateral damage. It's about fixing that and being a better person.
Yeah.
And it's like the second half, I have to learn how to be a better person and kind of harness all those, weaknesses that I have and deal with them. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of being a better person, like I genuinely appreciate you giving me free range to come in and begin to work operating off of that core idea, because I have this deep conviction that when you work on growing as a person, that influences all the spaces that you're in. You grow as a person, you can be a better dad. You grow as a person, you can be a better spouse. You grow as a person, you can be better in the community, at church, on the sports team, at work. And it took a while for the team to really like really grab a hold of that idea. But eventually they saw that I'm not backing down on this idea that if you do the hard work and the heart work on yourself, it will change how you approach your work. And man, it's great to hear you confirm that. You stand by that. You believe that. Growing your people. Mike, as we work to close down, do you have any other closing thoughts on the book? Of course, we'll talk about where we can find the book. Any other closing thoughts on the book? Well, let me ask you this. This is the final question. What do you appreciate most about what you get to do, the work that you get to do? What do you appreciate most about that?
Love people. That's it. I love people. And I am so blessed every day to associate with people that want to do better.
Mm.
And, that's what brings me the greatest joy. If I can work with individuals that honestly want to do better and they're striving to do better, and if I can help them, and I always say I have two roles as a leader. I knock down walls and I give people tools.
Yes.
That's it. That's all I do. And you're running into a wall. What can I do to help you fix that, knock it down? And then what are you going to need to go to the next level? And when I get to do that, that's the most satisfying thing in the world. You can't put a price tag on it. And no matter what level you are, if you're working with individuals if you get to do that, I think it's a great, and for me, that's it. That's everything.
Knock down walls and give people tools, providing them an opportunity to grow and get better. That's special, Michael. Where can we find the book, and how can we stay in touch with you or learn a little bit more about Michael Rodenberg?
You can go to wecanbridgethegap.com. That's the website there. There's links to order the book from Amazon, from Barnes & Noble, the bookstore. You can get the book on Amazon.com if you just type in the full name of the book. You can reach me through that website if you want to. There's a link to an email to get there to me. But even through work, if there's something that I'm always willing to, if somebody's got a question about something, contact me at my website for work at mrodenberg at murakami-usa.com.
Michael, if we ever go to Japan, what do we have to eat?
Sushi.
Sushi?
You have to get sushi. It's the best thing in the world. And if you don't like sushi, it's like you're missing out. You got to get tuna. That's it. Just get one piece of sushi tuna, dip it in the soy sauce with a little bit of wasabi, which is the hot mustard, and it's everything, man.
That's it.
And Jeremy's going, I guess I'm not going.
I'm willing to try anything once. And I do like sushi, but of course, sushi in America clearly isn't sushi of Japan.
No. It's a whole different experience.
Well, Mike, I really appreciate the time that you've given me and our listeners. It's a pleasure and a privilege to celebrate this piece of work that you put out here. I know that your heart and soul is in this. You stand by this because this is your story. I appreciate what you do, not only for the people that you work with, but also for our local community. I know you've done a great job in bridging the gap there as well, because you're passionate about next generation leadership and providing employment opportunities in the industry that you're in. So you're an advocate on all of those sectors. I just thank you so much. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your time.
Jeremy, thank you. I just can't say enough about all that you've done for me and our team, and I wish you the best, and keep, changing people's lives.
Yes, sir. Will do. Well, folks, listen, this has been another episode of Let's Grow with my special guest, dear friend, CEO, Murakami Manufacturing US, Mr. Michael Rodenberg. Go get his book at webridgethegap.com. And remember, guys, don't just go through life, grow through life, and everybody can encourage somebody. We'll see you on the next episode.